If you played baseball in Bloomfield, New Jersey, it is very likely that you played under Coach Dan, or more specifically, the Bloomfield Bombers. While the Bombers are currently the #1 travel team in Bloomfield, that hasn't always been the case. In fact, let me introduce you to Wrights Field. Actually, let me give you a better view. Welcome to Wrights Field, the original and current home of the Bloomfield Bombers. But what if I told you when Coach Dan founded the Bombers, they didn't have a home field? Well, today we will explore the humble beginnings of the Bombers to show how they turned into the baseball powerhouse that we know today. Bomber baseball is poetry in motion, and to think none of it would even be possible if it wasn't for Coach Dan, the heart and soul of the Bomber program.
Bloomfield Bombers are a nonprofit organization that was started in 2006, I want to say, 2007, I believe. Again, travel team comprised of 99% Bloomfield kids. Once in a while, we'll take a kid from out of town that's like a family member of a coach or something. And we're a town team that plays against, as the best competition that we can find to hopefully get them better. We had an all-star team that was in Babe Ruth, and at the time they were either 13 or 14, it might have been a mix. And the kids wanted to stay together and play in the fall. So we played in the fall, and then we were still underneath the Babe Ruth, umbrella, quote unquote, using their insurance and their fields and everything. But then they wanted to kind of take control of the team. The kids didn't want that, so the kids stuck together, and we just said they took our fields away. So then we had to play on the road for a couple years, and we've been doing it ever since.
Current Bomber player and coach Lou Orangio tells us what the Bombers and Coach Dan mean to him.
And it completely changed our lives. Coach Dan has become like a father to me, second father, and he made me the ball player I am today. I'm going to tell you a really good story about Coach Dan. There's one game we're playing out in Sussex, New Jersey, way far. I didn't have a ride that game. He took me, just the two of us rode up there. And we lost that game. I want to say 3-0. And we just weren't hitting a lick. I was 0 for 3. It was just an overall bad game. Hour drive home. He takes me to Dunkin' Donuts. He gets me a breakfast sandwich. I said, Coach, you don't have to spend money on me. I didn't even have a good game. I was 0 for 3. I looked horrible. He goes, kid, no one's horrible on my team. I was damn proud of the way you played today. And that always meant a lot. That's for Coach Dan. That was Coach Dan as a person.
Yeah, Lou's a baseball junkie, all right? Lou actually made that all-star team. He was a coach's pick. He wasn't, he's not the most athletically gifted kid, and I'm not, I would tell, yeah, I would tell him to his face, he knows that. But what he lacked in his athleticism, he made up for with heart. And you never find a kid that worked harder to get better. And he turned himself into a varsity baseball player. I was very proud of him.
Proper funding is something many travel baseball teams struggle with. But since the Bombers have an official board and committee, everything is organized and done so parents have to spend as little as possible for their child to play ball.
They are funded by the parents and fundraising. So what we'll do is, and again, it's nonprofit, so everything's to the penny. The entrance fee for the league, the insurance, which actually we raised the money for the insurance, game balls, umpire fees, and then whatever that is, we add it together, divided by the amount of kids, and that's it.
One aspect that makes the Bombers different from other travel programs is that they are a nonprofit, so the emphasis is put on the kids rather than the money.
It's different. All programs are run different. Some are for profit. Not just for the people that run the program, for the coaches get paid, our coaches don't get paid. So that's pretty different. Like most travel teams, you don't see that. I'm very fortunate for that. And other than that, we do our fundraisers. We had a casino night that went very well. And we'll either put that money into getting uniforms so the parents don't have to pay for them, or paying for tournaments, which are pretty expensive, to help keep the costs down. I would say the only thing different is that we were very worried about the bottom line and trying to save parents money and keep the costs down very low, since we're not profiting from it.
With money coming in and being organized by a committee and board, Coach Dan can rest easy, because when the Bombers were originally founded, he often had to pay money out of his own pocket to keep the program running.
A lot came out of my pocket, yeah. It's different now, and actually, until I had the board, I was still kind of doing that. I have a real hard time asking people for money, so we'd go to our winter workouts, and instead of asking them to bring money, I would say just throw whatever you got in a bucket, and if I got $50, I'd be happy, and then I'd have to pay the other $60 out of pocket. So, but now it's different. Now it's much more organized.
If you don't mind me asking about
Sure.
How much came out of your pocket for a typical Bomber season back in the day?
Over 1,000, I would say. Yeah, at least, at the very least.
And why did you do that?
Yeah, 'cause I loved it, and I know some of the situations that parents are facing, back then and nowadays, that sometimes they just don't have the money, and I'm not the type to go beat down their door. So if they don't pay me, I just put it out of pocket.
For Coach Dan, there is no price he can put on the bond he holds with the players in the Bomber organization.
It's very, very rewarding. It really is. It's really what makes me tick. It just to see a kid not only get better at baseball, but to see a kid progress in life and do well. Whether it's going to school or getting a job or getting married, and inviting me to their wedding, or that's all good stuff. It really is. You can't put a price tag on that.
Another current Bomber player and coach, Joe Santora, describes how the Bombers and Coach Dan changed him as a ball player.
Oh, Bombers are everything. It's a great, beginning before you play high school here in Bloomfield. Got me ready for college. I played at Montclair State. I don't think I would have played as competitively if I didn't have the Bombers in my life. And Dan McDowell is just probably the best coach I've ever had and ever will have. Coach Dan is a baseball lifer. Doesn't have any kids in his system. Does it for the love of the game. Doesn't do it for a paycheck. He's there year-round for you. He's the first coach I had that asked me how I was doing in school, which is something that resonated with me. Just all-around great guy.
Yeah, Joe, when he was 13 or 14, didn't say a word, couldn't crack a smile. Ergo the nickname Robo Joe, which he ended up getting. Again, more athletically talented than Lou, just as hardworking, all business. And that pretty much carried on now. He's fun-loving kid. He smiles. He talks something. You can't get him to shut up, actually. But two very good kids. I'm glad you brought those two up.
With other travel options in Bloomfield, Coach Dan weighs in why kids want to play for the Bloomfield Bombers.
I don't know. We've been successful. Kids want to. They want to win. They want to practice. We practice a lot. We travel. It's no knock against Babe Ruth at all. But they don't do the things we do. They don't go to Diamond Nation. They don't go to Myrtle Beach. And I just think we have a lot more to offer. Plus, and excluding myself, but plus we have some really good coaches. Guys that are committed and especially with the kids coming back now. They don't have a kid in the program, like myself, so there's no concerns from the other parents about their kid, the coach's kid, getting favoritism. So there's a lot of things, but overall, sorry to ramble on, overall I think we just have a lot more to offer.
So you're saying you have nothing to do with it? Kids don't want to play for Coach Dan?
I don't know. I'd like to think so. I'm hard on them, but I think they know where it's coming from. I don't yell at them, I yell to them. I try to push them, basically. So as long as they can deal with that, then yeah, I think that type of kid would want to play for me. But I think it's more the name. I think it's more the program that everybody built, that the kids built up, that the parents built up, not just me in general.